I'll now come to you. The budget has been presented. You are the chairman of the Finance Committee. Now that there is budget committee, the budget will go to the budget committee first, right? Or it will come to your committee? Okay.
The budget committee would look at the appropriation in the end and also consider other government obligations, which are the centralized expenditure handles that are under the Ministry of Finance that are spent for the benefit of the entire economy. So wage bill, interest payments, transfers to statutory funds, those are other government obligations, and they will be dealt with by the budget committee. Okay. But let me say that I'm also part of the budget committee.
Oh, you are? Wow. So which part of the budget will come to the Finance Committee?
So the Finance Committee would consider the Ministry of Finance as a macro-fiscal institution.
Okay.
It's a macro-fiscal institution because it handles the macro as well as also acting as though it is a sector ministry which deals with the Ministry of Finance and its agencies. So those agencies will be brought to the Finance Committee. Most of the enabling legislation that would empower the minister to implement the budget, like the revenue bills and some of the instruments, would pass through the Finance Committee for us to get them approved so the minister is empowered to implement them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. As a member of the majority, the party which has formed government, when you scan through social media, I mean, the general feedback you get from people who are apolitical is that this seems to be a good budget, how it was presented, the details of it and all of that. You should be excited as government, no?
Yes, but we know that it's a difficult task. We inherited a government where, we were constrained by many factors. First, we needed to work within the space of the IMF program, which had several benchmarks that had derailed, and we needed to bring it back on board. We had constrained because we had been blocked out of the international capital market. Even our own domestic lenders did not trust the government. So the domestic capital market was gone, and we were only restricted to the short end of the market, and we needed only to borrow on the short term. And if you're a finance person, you will know that that comes with a lot of risk. You have refinance risk, basically using short-term funding to fund long-term projects. Clearly, you have a misalignment when it comes to your obligations. So we needed to address all of that. But we also knew that most of the economic variables, I would call them, were misbehaving. They were misbehaving because they were responding to the misbehavior in the management of the economy. For instance, if you had an economy where about 80 billion Ghana cedis has been printed and pumped into the economy, okay, what do you think those monies will go? And especially when your capital market is gone. So there are no opportunities to invest those kind of monies. It will find its way into the forex market because people then go to buy the forex. That is a clear misconduct that is enforced by the management of the economy. And you needed to sanitize that and bring some behavior to bear on that. So what did we do? I watched a program when one of my colleagues was at pains to explain that we had sanitized or sterilized about 60 billion, and he didn't understand why. That is high-powered money. And high-powered money operates as though you have a rebel or mercenaries coming into your country and holding rifles. They will kill anybody at sight, right? So when you pump 80 billion into the economy that doesn't belong there, you need to find them and lock them up if you want to bring behavior to bear on your inflation, interest rate, and exchange rate. So the first thing we did was to make sure that all those mercenaries are back to border. Okay, so we sterilized close to 70 billion, and that is very expensive. So you now have at the Bank of Ghana close to 70 billion of high-powered money sitting there and isolated from the economy so that we can isolate the noise from the economy and see the economy for what it is. So the end result is that all those extra money that we're chasing forex are gone. So the forex now is responding to need, not just noise. Okay. Then you had a situation where, as a result of this, your inflation was around 26 or 23%. What that means is that to move to real interest rate territory, you needed a buffer around 23%. So 23% plus a buffer gives you a real interest rate. So you wouldn't be surprised that a government was borrowing at 32, 33%. Now you have isolated that. What you are seeing is that inflation is well behaved, and as a result of that, you can borrow at 11.4%. Okay, so that is what we did. Now, you would also realize that because of all these variables, we are seeing stability. But when you see stability, the next step is that your stability itself has an impact in your growth numbers, because you know that once inflation is decelerating, the advantage you get is that your deflator becomes smaller. And as a result, you begin to see growth. So the growth that we are seeing was largely about creating sanity within the space. Now, the second one is that we also realized that our fiscal environment was also misbehaving. So we needed to stop that. And the only way you could stop that is to pass reforms. So we came to Parliament and said, look, you cannot just be contracted anyhow. So before you can contract, we want to amend the PPA Act and say that you must come for commencement authorization. So nobody
from the finance ministry.
Yes, from the finance ministry. So we made the PPA the gatekeeper. If anybody comes here to say he wants to procure, ask them whether they have authorization and the government has agreed that it has money to spend.
Yeah.
Okay, so the gatekeeper now made sure that it was waiting for the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Finance now had the responsibility to vet all those things before they were procured. So you see that commitment controls, began to work. And the advantage of that is that we're able to basically get a handle on the fiscal anchor, which is that we're able to pay all our expenses and leave something to pay down our debt service. So after paying for compensation, paying for statutory funds, and paying for capital expenditure, all generated domestically, you then have the equivalent of 1.5% of your GDP. And our GDP is in the region of close to 800 billion Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Calculate 1.5% of that, which is available for you to pay your debt service, pay for interest, and pay some of your amortization. So you begin to see that for the first time, our rate of debt accumulation moved into negative territory because we're not adding on to our debt. We're paying off the debt and leaving some to pay off the accumulated principal. So once we got a handle on all of that, now we move to 2026, where we now want to make use of what we have done. So if you look at the fiscal objectives for the 2026 budget, the first thing is that we'll continue to consolidate the stability. We don't want to lose focus on inflation, on interest rates, and all those variables. And we think that the fiscal anchor must be maintained. So that is the first step. The second step is, having done that, we must move into the phase of transformation and job creation. Because the stability was creating that growth, it was not job creating enough. So we now have to move into the next phase of transformation and job creation. How do you achieve that? We agree that over the years, we have not been able to renew our infrastructure. So the big push is part of the transformation to renew our infrastructure. And I heard you mention the Accra Expressway.
Yes.
For those of you who know Ghana very well, that is the gateway to what we call the Northern Ringway.
Sure.
Okay. So you go to Ashanti region through the expressway, you hit Techiman, you go through Wenchi, you end up at Sola, takes you to Wa, and then to Tumu, all the way back to Boga, and then you can go to Boku. From there, you use Pasenkwe, hit through Nalelu, and you are back to Walwale, and then you come back or alternatively, you use the other intermodal road, which takes you through Ho, okay, and takes you to
the Eastern Corridor.
Have, and at Have, you decide whether you want to go through Kwando or you want to come to Hohoi and go through Kwanta, go through Pasa, Otidemanko, and back to that, what do you call it? What is it? Former minister's.
Panda, oh no.
No, not Panda. Wait. That road takes you to.
Is it? Adongo?
Bimbila. It takes you to Bimbila to Yendi, and you are back in Tamale, and you can decide to go this way and go through the Upper East and all those, or you go this way and go through Sola and all of that. So you can see a broad range of road infrastructure that will be renewed by the big push. And it is a calculated attempt to give Ghana a chance to reform our infrastructure. Now, for those of you who are in the West, you know that you can go through Central Region, end up in Western Region.
And then Western North.
Then you go through Asenkregwa, you go through Enchi, you enter Dwabuso, come through Sehiri also, and then use Bebieni and back to Kumasi. So we are reforming the entire road network. It's a deliberate policy. And that is something that if we achieve, we would be able to leave to the people of Ghana a renewed infrastructure that will underpin the transformation of our country. And I had my colleagues.
But the question is about how are we funding?
I will do that. You see, I had my colleagues hold a press conference, and my good friend and brother, Mohammed Amin, was at pains to say that we budgeted for 13.7 billion and we committed 63 billion. Clear lack of understanding of project management. If you want to put $10 billion on the ground in 4 years, what you do is that the first year, you do a lot of preparatory work. You are now going to identify all these roads I have mentioned. You are going to do inventory of all those roads. How many bridges you need to have, where do you need to excavate, and where do you need to backfill. You do all of that, put together a design. And after the design, you have to now put together a bill of quantities and start contracting. So you want to be ready when you enter 2026, that you have a pool of projects that are already contracted and can start. You don't do that in 2026. You do that in 2025. And put and contract 63 billion that even if you do 50% of that on the ground in 1 year, that gives you the 30 billion you are supposed to spend in that year. Okay? What they are saying is that contract for 13 billion, and then the next year, come and now start the process to contract. By the time you contract, you are in the 6th month of the year. Clearly, you can't spend 30.
So essentially, you're saying the 13.8 billion budgeted for big push this year was used to do
part of it has been done, and part of it is there. The money is referenced. Don't forget, it is coming out of ABFA and other resources. So it's already there. But what I'm saying is that because of that, when we came to Parliament last year or this year, we didn't only mention big push for that year, but we spelled out and gave clarity to the medium-term outlook, what we call the multi-year expenditure framework.
Sure.
We brought that. And if you put the expenditure framework over 4 years together, that is why we are contracted. So there is a parliamentary approval to commit the state to the 63 billion, so that you can now be implementing, and as you implement, you develop new ones. So that in the end, you can do the 10 billion, which is the equivalent of 100 billion Ghana cedis. So what we are seeing is clear project management thinking. That says, let's do most of our preparatory work this year. Let's get a number of projects on our books that when we start implementation proper, by the close of the year, we would have done the equivalent of 30 billion of projects on the ground that our budget can accommodate. Then the following year, if we do another 50%, we have another 30 billion. By which time, we would have developed new projects and continue the journey. So for those who don't understand project management and are thinking that we have committed 63, and because of that they are worried, they should go and read their books about project management. If you don't do that, what it means is that to be able to spend 30 billion, you have to crash the project. And when you crash a project, you put more resources, and that becomes very expensive. We want to deliver big push in the most efficient and effective manner to the people of Ghana. And that is why we are forward-looking in developing and making sure that the preparatory works are completely done. So that is the first one. The second transformation, we realize that one of the major bottlenecks to our country is our energy future. So we are aware that we have serious legacy problems in the energy sector. We spent the first year stabilizing energy and making sure that we deal with the issue of the energy sector debt. And that is why you will find that we have renegotiated most of the IPPs. Okay? But in doing that, we also know that there are some IPPs that are not likely to be interested in the model that we are operating. And for those that don't want to commit long term, we must prepare for them. In the event that they exist, how do we fill the gap of the energy loss? And it is the reason His Excellency says he will construct a government-sponsored thermal plant of 1,200 megawatts, so that for those who want to exit, we'll have ready-made power to fill in. But to do that, we are doing the entire value chain. So you will see we are spending a lot of money to build a second gas plant at Atuabo. Okay? And that will produce over 150 million standard cubic feet of gas to power our energy sector. We are retooling most of our energy, we are repurposing most of them to make sure that they are more efficient. But also we are also improving the mix of power. So we are negotiating down most of the rates that were negotiated for our solar power to bring it down to reasonable levels. We're doing 12 cedis per megawatt hour. We have negotiated down to something around 6. We know that if we begin to add more and it's government sponsored, we'll be able to bring it down. Let me tell you, most of the IPPs have a financing cost of 12% on a dollar bill. That is very expensive. And I heard you mention the fact that the rating agencies, Moody, Fitch, Standard & Poor's, have all upgraded Ghana away from a junk status to investment grade status. What that means is that the advantage of that should count for something in terms of our costs. Why should we still be paying 12% to borrow when the yields on our bonds today is in the region of about 7%, 6%? So we are trying to assist those agencies to replace those expensive financing arrangements so that tariffs will come down. So the most important thing is that we want to make sure that we build for our energy future. Then we can properly address the problem of transformation. For those who are shouting everywhere that we can't put the lights on and we can't do 24-hour economy, they should tell me the last time the lights were switched off. But beyond the lights not being switched off is that we are investing more into the future. And the work that young man, John Jenapo, has done is amazing. For those of you who are not close to him, go and learn the lessons. And we will fix that problem and make sure that even the leakages within the energy sector will address that. And we have a clear program to make sure that those financing are done from within Ghana. And the resources are there, the policies are there, and he will be assisting me to approve some of them in the next few days. So we are very clear. Okay. We are very clear what the strategy is. We are very clear that the resources are here, and we will find the dollar money within here and spend the money.
The overarching question, Honorable, is that, and I think Doc mentioned that anytime the IMF is in town, the records show that we do well.
That is why we are not discussing a successor program. You see?
No, I'm coming.
I can understand what you're saying.
So this year, we are still under an IMF program. So I've heard people saying, hasten slowly. That we should reduce the praises of government. The real test will be when IMF leaves from the middle of next year, if we can maintain the discipline and still hold the system.
So let me tell you something. Yesterday, my brother said that given the amount of intervention in the market, you would have expected that the cedi would be trading around 8 cedis. And I said, what? We pumped 60 billion of borrowed money, and the cedi went to 17 cedis. Or you don't remember? We're doing 3 billion every year.
Yes, from the capital market.
And it didn't stop the cedi from sliding.
No.
And now, let me make my point. Let me explain something. So let me tell you.
Were they specifically for?
If 3 billion couldn't solve it, they are talking about 1.4. You see, there's a clear forex framework that is operated in this country. The forex that are generated by the economy. Ordinarily, those money should be going to the commercial banks to intermediate. Okay? So, if you understand the framework, what they call intervention are clearly financial intermediation. Gold board buys gold from ordinary Ghanaians who go to mine. Shouldn't that money be going into the banks? We export cocoa produced by ordinary cocoa farmers. Shouldn't those monies be going to the banks to facilitate import of goods and services? We call that intermediation. But the framework says that, look, take all your flows, set aside government requirements, government forest requirements, including the energy sector bills. What you have now left, make sure that you take care of the accumulation of your reserves. And by the way, Ghana has exceeded its accumulation requirement under the IMF program. This year, we're supposed to accumulate an additional of about $840 million. As of last month, we were doing $1.2 billion, far ahead of the target. Okay? So the difference that is like, what do you do with it? You send it back where it belongs. And the IMF understand that that is not intervention, that is financial intermediation. So people ignorantly who don't understand the framework that is being used, even IMF initially thought that it was intervention until we explained to them that those monies that come in belong to where we have sent them back. And
so
that
it's intermediation,
it's intermediation
and not intervention.
Yes, there is element of intervention when the market is imperfect.
Yes.
And there are constraints within the market. Then you can intervene. But I'm saying that a lot of those monies that they are calling intervention is financial intermediation. Forex intermediation.
Then, I think you've spoken.
So part of the transformation.
Wrap up for me.
Part of the transformation is to create the goalposts that you have spoken about some of them. One, we want to make sure that when gold is in trouble, what happens? So we are trying to find the next cocoa.
Which is palm.
Which is palm, cashew, all those agribusiness, and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which is now adding agribusiness, is being empowered to make sure that we produce those things, to create employment, but also to create additional forex revenue. Now, apart from that, you need to understand that part of the architecture of the next 2026 is to scale up social spending. So, Get Fund. Get Fund allocation was about 3.6 billion. And out of the 3.6 billion, there's something they call Dachi. They went to borrow. Okay? They went to collateralize future monies that they hadn't seen and took billions of dollars. And the Get Fund was servicing at 1.2 billion a year. Take that out of 3.4. You get about 2. And now we are giving Get Fund 9.9 billion in 1 year. It has never happened. And we are saying we want to go and...
Give me a minute.
Well, it's unfortunate we don't have
I'm coming. Just give me a minute. This is News File. We have to break briefly here. I hear there is a challenge with your microphone, so we'll fix that and then we come back. And Honorable Kabir would also have his say.